Hey everybody, Jessica Henry here. I am happy to welcome you back to my YouTube channel today. This week I'm going to work on finishing this portrait. I want to show you how to paint hands. So I did already start the hand at the workshop where I began this portrait, and last week I blocked in a little bit of color on the hand. What I would like to do today is to correct some of those drawing issues and then paint the hand to a finish. And I'm also going to paint a little bit of the fabric around her and just maybe give her some hair tendrils and things like that. Just polish up the painting and finish it up. My palette today for the colors that I'll be using are titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, a little bit of cadmium red light, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson. I'm probably not going to use the phthalo green. I also want to call your attention to some of the links below. We are having a spring sale going for about a month on our Renaissance Creative Arts website. So click on that link and you'll see we have some reduced discounts on our videos going from about 36% to 51% on some of our most popular videos. So take a look, and we do have one on painting the portrait as well as one called Open Minds, Open Seas that I just finished. It's also painting a portrait with a figure in a landscape. So take a look, and I hope you'll enjoy those. Also, we are very excited to be promoting the workshop in France next year, and I've got a few more workshops this calendar year that I'm excited about as well. So go ahead and take a look at those links, and remember, if you enjoyed this video, to like and subscribe. Okay, so let's get going. All right, so what I want to do when I sit down to paint is I want to go through and just take a palette knife and carefully scrape off some of the thicker brush strokes from the first day of painting. And I want to do this because the rest of this painting here on her face is very smooth, and you really don't see any of these coarser, heavier brush strokes that I did when I was just laying it down. Sometimes I'm not sure what direction I'll take a painting, and I may keep it loose and painterly, but in this case, given the subject matter, it just made sense that she was a little bit tighter and more polished. So this is what I'm going to do to begin with. I'm just scraping off some of these brush strokes because I want this to be really smooth. I don't mind that there's some on the clothes themselves. And I've noticed that there's just a few little crumbly things in the paint. Being very careful not to scrape down into the layer of paint, just the little crumbs. All right. All right. Okay, so taking a small brush, and you won't be able to see my palette for most of this session, but I will show you how I mix some of the skin tones. I'm only going to use just a few specific colors, and that's it. So when I put my palette down below, and I may do some of this video on high speed, just know that I'm using variations of that very same color mixture. So to begin with, I'm just going to take a little bit of burnt sienna and a thinned down mixture of that. And I want to do the drawing corrections on her hand for now. And I'm just going to do it in sienna. So I'm going to do some vertical measurements where I draw sort of a line on here and I compare it to where things intersect up there. So let's see, if I start with checking the distance from the top of her finger to under her chin, and that can be raised a little bit. So again, when I blocked in this hand, my concentration was on just getting that overall gesture there correct, and then concentrating on fingers and hands are basically cylinders stacked on spheres. And so if you can think about the drawing that way, you'll have an easier time getting the feeling of fingers. Don't think of them as hands, fingers. Think of them more as spheres, soup cans and spheres that way. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet because I have to concentrate. So we have the first soup can right here. And then we have a ball, that's the knuckle. And the last fingertip over here ends about like that, inside there. And then this soup can starts about here. And it ends about in this vicinity. And the first knuckle here is another sphere. So I'm thinking about this as a round passage right here. Okay, and then we've got the other finger. So once I get one finger in place, I like to look around and see how things connect with that one, and then how this one connects with that one, and so forth. But before I move beyond this first finger, I'm going to double check it and make sure that I'm perfectly happy with the corrections that I've made. So I'm going to just fast forward right here and not talk while I just double check adjustments. There's a window, a gap in here, in between the two fingers, so I don't have that on my painting. I'd like to put that in there, so I'm looking to see where I have to redraw things. Make that work. And there's a knuckle. It's kind of come down to a knuckle, and this one has one right here. And I do want to paint her ring in there. So I'll just suggest where that is on here. And then where does this finger intersect with this one? And then the pinky. Okay. So then this has sort of the fleshy side of it. And this knuckle of the ring finger comes down about like this. And there's a knuckle right here. And this one is right about in there. And there's a ring on this one. I love these rings because they help identify the form. She was all dressed up here to go to her dance last year. So she's wearing all her rings and getting all her earrings and everything on. Okay, so now coming back this way. That first knuckle here is very much like a ball inside here, so it's important to think about that in constructing the shadows and the anatomy underneath the skin. All right, and then the thumb meets up under here. I think that's pretty much in the right place. Looks good. And this one meets up just about like that. And then there's this curve going downwards. Now I thought what would be interesting is to give her like a gold chain for her necklace, a really delicate little gold necklace that she's holding, just so that it kind of made sense what her hand was doing here. All right, now once I get the hand in place like that, I want to block in the main overall colors. So there's 3 values that I want to focus on: light, medium, and dark. So to mix up a nice skin tone, I take for her, I will take yellow ochre and white, and this is sort of my base. On my palette here today is a little bit of Gal Kid Light in my little cup. It's a medium that makes the paint a little bit thinner and adds a shine, and it speeds up drying. So I start out with just a nice base of yellow ochre and titanium white. Into this, I can make it lighter or darker, and onto one side, I'm going to make it cooler with some alizarin crimson. And onto the other side, let me clean this off, I can make the skin tone warmer with some cadmium red. And so I have a very cool pink tone skin tone and a very warm skin tone here. Now I can make some other shades of skin tone with cadmium yellow, or red, and cadmium yellow. And just make an orange. And into this, you'll add some white. Okay, that's one. You can make another kind of skin tone with burnt sienna, which is also part of the red family, and some yellow ochre. Mix those 2 together, not in equal proportions. You have to just gauge. Put a little ochre down and a little sienna and paint the colors together till you get an interesting shade. A little bit of white, see what you get into that. Maybe a little more sienna. And that gives you a little bit more earth tone color there, a little more brown. Okay, so that is the overall basic recipe. If I want to darken some of these, the basic skin tones, I can add a little bit of ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, maybe a little more sienna, because the blue will add a grayish tone. So let's take a little bit of alizarin into that and some white. White gives you an idea of what it is you've just done. So you see how I'm just taking little bits of this color and that color and painting them together. You don't want to just start out with a big glob of this and that and start just randomly mixing it. Paint the colors together to see what you might need more of. And then you can leave some of it. So that one's a little bit more sienna, that one's a little bit more bluish tone, and this one's a little bit more alizarin crimson tone. Okay, so I can use those as some of these darker shadow colors. And the skin has a lot more grayness to it than we realize. So we're gonna use those colors too. I might as well use those since I have it on my brush, and I'll start putting in some of these darker middle tone values in here. Squinting down at her hand, I'm not worried about all the little bounce lights and reflected lights and things. For now, I just want to block in the shadow areas here. Just laying down simple, clean pieces of paint. I might take some of that mixture that was a little more sienna into some of these passages where there's a knuckle that really does appear more brown. And this is a synthetic brush, just a size 2 flat. I am going to mix up a little bit darker mixture here with the sienna and the ultramarine blue, like this. Just to get in some of these darker passages on this finger and down the finger that way. So I'm not really paying a whole lot of attention to the underpainting at this point because I had to redraw the hand anyway, and so I'm kind of just starting over. Oops. Maybe a little more alizarin crimson. I do see some of that on her chest over here too. So we'll get that in place. A little bit more sienna and blue. I'm using mostly this mixture right now because I'm working on the darker areas. Okay, now I'm going to take some of this mixture that's a little bit more yellow ochre and burnt sienna. I'm noticing this passage of her hand that's warmer down below. Just take it right into that, down in this lower area in here. So if I squint down at that, I see it more in this shape. now to get in some of the lighter tones. And I'm going to use a little bit stiffer brush for this, also a size 2, but it's a bristle. And the light coming through the window here is very cool, so I'm grabbing more of the alizarin crimson shade that way. A little bit of Gal Kid light, just to thin it down a little bit. Again, just blocking in where I see this lighter passage going on each of these fingers. Just taking a little bit more alizarin crimson and yellow ochre for this passage of the hand over here. There's no point in painting it really bright light when I know I'm going to be toning it down anyway, since it's at a different angle than the rest of the hand. This plane is not receiving the same kind of light that those are coming in from the window. All right, I'm going to fast forward now and paint this in fast forward. I will be using this variety of mixtures of skin tones to finish painting her hand. So I will talk every now and then about what I'm doing, but for a while now it's going to be in fast forward. Okay, so I've worked on the area around her hand and also have comfortably blocked in where the main color patches are going to be on her hand, and just working on creating this overall platform for the hand to really be the center of attention down here. So what I'm going to do now is take a little bit smaller brush. I have just a small little guy here, and I'm going to come through here with a little bit of the Gal Kid painting medium. And just soften now all those different passages where there's separation, and sort of clean and refine and sharpen and lose edges as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is soften so that I can see where I am and what I have left to work with. I'm blending between color fields, color and value fields. So I'm just taking this brush and I'm wiping it quite frequently so that I don't get a muddy thing going on in here. And again, just refining some places where I need a little more value. Color just changes, a few changes in here. And sometimes your brush will get so loaded that you need to clean it off and dry it very thoroughly and then go back. Really want that glow to come through right in there. Put a little alizarin. When you have skin butting right up against skin, the colors blend into each other. You have some bounced light and reflective surfaces. So this finger here is picking up the reflection from this finger. This passage right here on this shadow of this finger is not picking up any skin tone. So it has its own shadow. This little passage in here with this finger is getting closer to the skin, so it is picking up more of the ambient light of the skin. Okay, well that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week. Remember, if you enjoyed it, to like and subscribe. All right, you guys, have a good week. Bye-bye.